Everyone believed Duke Everett Foxworth was finished. They said the war had taken his legs, his strength, and his mind. They said he was no longer a man, only a shadow pushed through grand rooms in a silent chair. What no one knew was that Everett Foxworth was watching them all. Lavinia Sinclair learned the truth about the world on the morning her father sold her future. The house on Beacon Street in Boston was cold and nearly empty. Paintings were gone from the walls. Rugs had been sold. Even the silver tray her mother loved had disappeared. Lavinia stood in her father's study, hands folded tight, while Baron Sinclair poured whiskey into a chipped glass. His back was to her. He did not look ashamed. "You will marry Duke Foxworth," he said. Lavinia felt the words strike her like ice. "The crippled Duke," she said quietly. "The one they roll through public gardens like a child." Her father finally turned. His eyes were tired, frightened, and weak. "He has offered to pay every debt," he said. "All of them. Enough to save this house. Enough to keep your brother out of prison." "So you are trading me," Lavinia said, "like property." "This is survival," Baron Sinclair snapped. "You think I enjoy this?" She laughed once, sharp and bitter. "You enjoy saving yourself," she said. "You always have." He slammed his glass down. "Foxworth needs a wife," he said. "Someone quiet, someone obedient, someone useful." Lavinia stepped closer, her voice steady though her heart was breaking. "They say he cannot walk. They say he screams at night. They say his mind was ruined in the war." "Gossip," her father said too quickly. "Idle talk." "Then why would he choose me?" she asked. "A woman with no fortune and a ruined name." Her father looked away. "Because you have no power to refuse." That was the moment Lavinia understood. There would be no rescue, no kindness, no choice. She turned and left the study without another word. That night, alone in her room, she cried until her chest ached. Then she stopped. Tears had never saved anyone. She made herself a promise instead. If she was to be trapped, she would not be weak. She would watch. She would learn. And someday, somehow, she would take back what had been stolen from her. Across the city, in a grand but silent townhouse, Everett Foxworth closed a leather ledger and locked it away. Inside were names, dates, lies, men who had laughed while he bled, men who believed him broken. They had pushed him into darkness. He had learned to see there. The engagement was announced within days. Boston society devoured the news with cruel delight. Poor Lavinia, married to a ruined man. Poor Duke Foxworth. Buying a wife because no woman would choose him. Lavinia attended the Hawthorne Ball 1 week later, her first public appearance since the announcement. The room glittered with light and wealth. Silk dresses whispered. Laughter floated like perfume. She felt every eye on her as she entered. She moved carefully, her posture perfect, her face calm. Inside, she felt hollow. Then the music faltered. Conversations broke apart. A path opened through the crowd. The Duke had arrived. Everett Foxworth was wheeled into the ballroom by a silent servant. His chair was polished wood and steel, elegant and imposing. A dark blanket covered his legs. His face was pale, sharp, and still. Not weak, not confused. His eyes were what unsettled Lavinia most. Gray. Cold. Awake. They swept the room and stopped on her. For a moment, the noise faded. Lavinia felt as if he could see straight through her borrowed gown and practiced smile. Then he lifted one gloved hand and beckoned. The whispers exploded. Why her? What did he want with her? How pitiful they both were. Lavinia walked to him anyway. She curtsied. "Your Grace." "Lady Lavinia," he said. His voice was low, slightly slow, carefully measured. "Thank you for coming." "I had little choice," she replied honestly. Something flickered in his eyes. Interest, perhaps. I value honesty, he said. You will find that useful. Before she could answer, laughter burst beside them. Well, Foxworth, said a broad man with flushed cheeks, you finally come out of hiding. Two others joined him, smiling like sharks. Powerful men. Confident men. The kind who believed the world belonged to them. One leaned closer to Everett. Tell me, he said loudly, do you even understand where you are anymore? The laughter spread. Lavinia waited for Everett to react, to flinch, to retreat. He did neither. I enjoy music, Everett said calmly. And gardens. The men laughed harder. Lavinia felt heat rise in her chest. She stepped forward. My husband finds cruelty dull, she said. So do I. Silence fell. The men stared at her, stunned. One scoffed. You will regret that, he muttered. Perhaps, she said, but not tonight. Everett looked at her then, truly looked. Something unspoken passed between them. Shall we step outside? He asked softly. They did. The terrace was cool and quiet. Lanterns glowed over stone railings. The city hummed far below. That was unwise, Everett said. You have made enemies. I already had them, Lavinia replied. They just stopped pretending. He studied her. Why did you defend me? Because I know what it is to be watched while powerless, she said. And because I do not believe you are what they say. A pause. You are correct, Everett said. Her breath caught. Then why choose me? Because you have already lost everything, he said. Which means you are dangerous. He told her then, not everything, but enough, about betrayal. About men who had sent him into war to die, about a body broken and rebuilt in secret. About waiting. I need a partner, he said. Not a nurse, not a decoration. And if I refuse? She asked. He met her gaze. You will not. She should have been afraid. Instead, she felt awake. They were married 3 weeks later. The ceremony was small. Quiet. Respectable. Lavinia wore pale blue. Everett sat through the vows, his hand steady, his expression distant to all but her. That night, she waited alone in the grand bedroom, heart racing, mind full of questions. Footsteps approached. The door opened. Everett Foxworth stood and walked toward her. And everything she believed shattered in an instant. Lavinia could not move. Her eyes followed Everett as he crossed the room on steady legs, each step calm and controlled. The chair stood behind him like a discarded lie. The firelight revealed a man who was not broken at all, only hidden. You can walk, she whispered. Yes, Everett said. I always could again. For a long time now. Her heart thundered. Fear came first, sharp and sudden. Then, anger. Then something far more dangerous than both. You let the world believe you were helpless, she said. I let my enemies believe it, he corrected. There is a difference. He stopped a few steps away, giving her space. I owe you the truth, he said. I promise that. Lavinia stood slowly, gripping the back of a chair. Then tell it, she said. All of it. Everett drew a breath. The injury was real, he said. A cannon blast shattered my leg during the war. For nearly 2 years I could not stand. The doctors said it was finished. They were wrong. He told her about the pain, the endless nights, the slow work of rebuilding strength in silence, how he learned to walk again behind locked doors while rumors of madness spread outside. And the men who spread those rumors, he said, his voice colder now, were the same men who sent me into that war to die. Lavinia listened, her hands clenched at her sides. They were powerful, Everett continued. Business partners, politicians, friends of my father. He discovered what they were doing, stealing from military contracts, sending poor supplies to soldiers. Men died because of it. Her breath caught. And your father? They murdered him, Everett said simply. made it look like an accident. Silence filled the room. They thought they finished me too, he went on. So I gave them what they expected, a broken Duke. A harmless man in a chair. He met her eyes, and while they laughed, I listened. Lavinia felt the ground shift beneath her. You married me for this, she said. For your plan. Yes, he said without hesitation. But not only for that. She raised her chin. Explain. You defended me, he said, at the ball. When you had nothing to gain, you showed courage when everyone else showed cruelty. I needed someone like that beside me. A partner, she said. Yes. She searched his face, looking for deception. She found none. You could have told me sooner, she said quietly. I needed to know if you would stay, Everett replied. Now you know who I am. If you wish to leave, I will not stop you. Your father's debts are paid regardless. That surprised her. She looked at the open door. Freedom stood there, waiting. Instead, she turned back to him. You asked me once if I would stand through a storm, she said. I meant what I said. A flicker of relief crossed his face, quickly hidden. Then we begin together, he said. Their marriage changed that night. Not with tenderness, but with truth. They spoke until dawn about plans, enemies, and risks. Lavinia learned names she had heard whispered in ballrooms, men who smiled in public and destroyed lives in private. You will be watched, Everett warned her. They think you are harmless. Use that. I have been overlooked my entire life, she said. I know how to move unseen. The next weeks became a careful dance. In public, Everett returned to the chair. Lavinia played the devoted wife. Behind closed doors they worked. Letters were copied. Accounts examined. Servants quietly questioned. Old allies approached with new confidence. Lavinia learned how power truly moved, not through loud speeches, but through quiet papers and careful timing. At social gatherings, men laughed at the crippled Duke and his plain wife. They never noticed how conversation stopped when Lavinia approached, how secrets slipped when people underestimated her. One evening, at a grand dinner hosted by Senator Hawthorne, Everett sat silent while three men discussed business across from him. One of them, Richard Colton, smiled cruelly. War changes a man, Colton said. Some never recover. Everett nodded faintly. Lavinia smiled. Some men, she said gently, were broken long before the war. Colton flushed. Everett's hand brushed hers under the table. Later that night, Everett spoke softly. Colton signed the orders that sent my unit forward without supplies. Lavinia felt rage burn. He will answer for it, she said. The first fall came quietly. A ledger appeared in the hands of a federal investigator. A shipping company collapsed under audit. Newspapers whispered of corruption. One of Everett's enemies fled the country. Another drank himself into ruin. Society buzzed with fear. Someone is cleaning house, they said. Everett watched it all from his chair, silent and smiling. One night, Lavinia found him standing at the window, staring out at the city. You are restless, she said. I waited years for this, he replied. I thought victory would feel different. She stepped beside him. It is not over yet. No, he said, but something is changing. He looked at her then, truly looked. You are braver than I imagined. She met his gaze. So are you. Their bond deepened, forged not by comfort, but by shared purpose. Trust grew slowly, carefully, like a wound healing clean. But danger crept closer. One afternoon, Lavinia received a note. No signature. Only a warning. We know. Her blood ran cold. That night, Everett read it in silence. They are beginning to see, he said. We must move faster. Will they come for us? She asked. They will try. The next attack was subtle. A rumor spread that Everett's condition was worsening, that Lavinia was seeking comfort elsewhere. Invitations stopped arriving. They want to isolate us, Everett said. "They already tried that with you," Lavinia replied. "It did not work." She straightened her shoulders. "Let them come." The final proof they needed lay locked in a private safe owned by the most dangerous man of all. Everett had waited years for the key. Now, at last, it was within reach. On the night before their next move, Lavinia stood before the mirror, steadying herself. Everett approached, no chair between them. "Are you afraid?" he asked. "Yes," she said honestly. "But I am not backing away." He took her hands. "Whatever happens tomorrow," he said, "you changed my fate." She squeezed his fingers. "So did you." Outside, the city slept, unaware that by morning everything would begin to burn, and the men who once laughed at a crippled duke were about to learn how wrong they had been. The night they moved against Jonathan Blackwood was quiet and cold. Rain darkened the streets of Boston, turning lantern light into trembling gold. Everett left his wheelchair behind for the first time outside the house. He wore a long coat and moved through the shadows with calm purpose. Lavinia walked beside him, her heart steady, her fear locked away. Blackwood's townhouse stood near the harbor, tall and guarded by reputation rather than men. He believed himself untouchable. That belief would be his end. They entered through a servant's door left unlocked by a man Everett had paid months earlier. Inside, the house smelled of oil and old wealth. Every step echoed. The study was exactly where Everett said it would be. Dark wood, heavy desk, a painting of Blackwood's father hanging slightly crooked. Behind it was the safe. Everett worked the lock with practiced ease. It opened with a soft click. Inside were letters. Contracts. Proof. Names tied together like rotten wood. Lavinia gathered the papers carefully, her hands firm. "This is everything," she said. A voice answered from the doorway. "I was wondering when you would stop pretending." Jonathan Blackwood stood there, pistol in hand, eyes sharp with rage. "You should have stayed in your chair," he said to Everett. "That was your mistake." Everett stepped forward, placing himself between Blackwood and Lavinia. "No," he said calmly. "My mistake was trusting you," Blackwood laughed. "You think this ends with papers," he sneered. "Men like me do not fall." Everett moved faster than Blackwood expected. One sharp strike sent the pistol skidding across the floor. The struggle was brief and brutal. Years of restrained strength broke loose. Blackwood fell, gasping, his wrist twisted at an unnatural angle. Everett stood over him. "You destroyed lives," he said. "Tonight, yours ends." They left Blackwood alive. That was justice, not murder. By morning, the documents reached federal hands. By noon, arrests began. Names that once ruled dinner tables vanished from society pages. Blackwood was taken at dusk. He screamed. He begged. No one listened. The trials shook the city. Newspapers ran stories for weeks. Men resigned. Others fled. Some faced prison. The truth could no longer be buried. Through it all, Everett returned to his chair in public. Until the final night. The winter assembly filled the grand hall with music and disbelief. The Duke of Foxworth arrived as always, seated, silent. Lavinia stood at his side, radiant and calm. Whispers followed them. The orchestra began a waltz. Everett placed his hands on the chair arms and stood. Gasps swept the room. Silence crashed down like a wave. He stepped forward, steady and unbroken, and offered his hand to his wife. "Dance with me," he said. They danced as truth spread across the room faster than sound, faces drained of color. Pride collapsed. Lies died. From that night on, no one ever called him Crippled again. Years later, Foxworth House was filled with laughter. Lavinia watched Everett teach their son to walk across the lawn. Strong legs, strong heart. The past no longer owned them. They had risen, and the world remembered their names.